Our last video on St. Patrick's Day talked about accepting the challenge that we currently face, the coronavirus. Today, we're going to talk about how do we solve this major challenge. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And once again today, my intention is to do all three: educate, lead, and inspire. So let's get right to it. How are we going to solve this issue? My major point is that you solve this issue the same way that you solve any other issue. Yes, the same way that you solve any other issue. You're going to face the same challenges and you overcome them the same exact way. Here's how we're going to do it. First of all, the first thing that is necessary, and this is true in business, I want you to be thinking of the congruencies between this and what we've talked about before in many of these videos, the challenges of business, the challenges of being successful in any endeavor. The elements are always the same. This is no different. The first thing we have to do is we have to recognize the problem, what I like to refer to as unsolved opportunity. So the very first thing that needs to be done is the American people must be sold on the severity of this particular challenge. Because if you are flippant, if you say, oh, this is not a big deal, nothing's going to happen. So the first thing that leadership has to do is to make sure that the American people, that people of the world, not just American people, but everybody understands the severity of this particular virus, this unsolved opportunity that we need to eliminate as best we can. That's the key thing. So that's the first thing that you have to do. There has to be a clear, unsolved opportunity that you have to solve. How do you do that? The same way as you do things in business. What you do is you can tell people and you can urge people, but what you need to do is you need to put it in people's faces. The same way as in a business setting, you put the goal up there, you put the scoreboard up there, you're showing this is where we are right now. We need to do that, and we are doing that. So, I mean, these are things that are going on right now. Every day we're saying, well, we have, and this is, March 19th. So what are we seeing today? Every single day we see that there are more people that have been infected. We see that there are more people that have died. We see that of where these people are. We see in countries that have already had this before we had it. We're showing the statistics. We need to put it in people's faces, the same way as you do in a business setting. You have to, before you can sell a solution, you first have to sell the problem. So what Washington has to do right now, which they are effectively trying to do, is to sell the problem to the American people. That's the first step. All right, so now that we have sold the problem, the next step is let's start coming up with a solution. How are we going to do that? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to create a vision. What's the vision that we want to create? We want to create the vision of America, using America as an example, as the way it is, the way it was, all right? Where we have a free society, where you're not worried about going outside, where you're not worried about talking to people. You can go to a basketball game if you want to, which I had tickets for, that my game got canceled. But that's a minor sacrifice. I mean, come on, missing a basketball game, I was annoyed, but hey, it's a minor sacrifice. There are going to be all sorts of minor sacrifices. So the first thing you sell the problem. Now you create the vision. The vision is America the way we know it. A country where you can do what you want, you have freedom of choice, and you can go where you want to go, you can do what you want to do, you can say what you want to say for all intents and purposes. All right, that's the vision. Now, what are some of the issues that we're going to be facing long term? Well, obviously with the sacrifices that we're talking about here, there are going to be people that are hit with significant major financial hardships. No question about that. That's going to be the case. However, Like anything else that you do in life, you must prioritize. We must prioritize. So what is the very first thing that we must do? We've got to nip this thing in the bud. We've got to fight this invisible enemy. We have got to chunk things down and take action, take steps. The first thing we have to do is we want to give CCDD, clear, concise, definite direction. All right, there have been, wash your hands, sing happy birthday while you're washing your hands, so you're doing it enough time. Don't, have the social distances so that you don't pass it along. I mean, these are things, I'm not going to go over these things. These are things that the public is known. You can get these things anywhere. My point is clear, concise, definite direction. Just like in business, just like in any endeavor that you pursue that you want to be successful. All right, so the leadership has to give clear, concise, definite direction. Once they have the vision of what it is they want, you have to sell that vision. We're going to get back to where we are, to where we were, but we have to first follow these steps. All right, these are the things that you have to do. This is the success formula. All right, you have the vision, clear, concise, definite direction. Chunk it down. All right, people have to buy into it. Then you have to chunk it down. All right, the first chunk was, we're going to close the schools. We're going to cancel the NCAA basketball tournament. We're going to cancel the NBA. All of the different events where people congregate, where people go to a workplace, where there's, where the invisible enemy can be passed on from person to person. We want to minimize those things, so we're chunking it down. And we're giving it a definite timeline. The timeline is 2 weeks or 3 weeks, somewhere in 2 to 3 weeks. That's the timeline. So the first thing is you can't see green lights all the way down to the end. It's not going to happen. We don't know how we're going to solve all the different problems, but we prioritize. We're going to solve this problem first. Our first step is minimize contact. We're getting to the starting line, and we're taking massive action. Massive action. Does that sound familiar with the success formula? Now, what also happens with the success formula? You have trial and error. There are going to be successes and there are going to be failures. All right, so what do? Well, you look at the data, you examine the data, you make your adjustments, and then you start from a new starting line. You make, everything that they're going to have us do is not going to work the first time. That's the way people achieve things. They're not successful. We all know Edison had 10,000 different experiments to make the light bulb. It takes time. But if you have the persistence, if you have the perseverance, if you maintain that vision in your mind of the ultimate vision, what is it we're going to do? You get to one starting line and you go as far as you can. And then once you go as far as you can and you say, okay, we're stopped here, then you have to go to the next starting line and you come up with a new game plan. So your game plan is going to change, and there's going to be many different adjustments that are going to have to be made. It's as simple as that. Understand the process of success. This is the way it's going to work. We're going to start, we're going to go as far as we can, we're going to get a new starting line, we're going to go as far as we can, and we're going to repeat the process over and over and over until we get to the finish line. Now we get to the finish line, but this is like a relay race. All right, the first thing is we want to get to the finish line as far as eliminating the virus. That's the first thing. Well, we already know that it's going to take a year or so for the vaccine, if and when it comes, to, at a minimum, so that we can hand that out to everybody and eliminate this invisible enemy. But we've got to take the first steps. We've got to get to the first starting line. The people making the vaccine are going to go through trial and error. This works, this didn't work. All right, this is financially possible. This is something we can do. That's step one. So the first thing we need to do, the first relay, the first lap that we have to take is we got to stop this thing. And we have people working at different angles, and we have experts, and you're having your mastermind group. You're having people, the president, I'm sure he's a very smart man. However, he doesn't know everything about science. There isn't anybody that knows everything about everything. That's why you have a mastermind group. Same thing is true in any endeavor where you're trying to achieve something. That's the first lap. Lap number 2 is we're certainly going to face some economic challenges. How are we going to handle that? Frankly, I don't know. However, one of the things we have to do is we have to have faith in the process. We have to have faith that since we're banding together to solve the first lap, the first issue, the first unsolved opportunity, that we are going to band together and help people in lap number 2, which is to regain their economic solvency when the time comes. But once again, prioritize, first things first. Now, what does that mean? That may mean the government giving money to people, that may mean eliminating taxes, that may mean the wealthier people being taxed more, and it could mean any number of different things. I don't begin to know how we solve that particular issue right now. However, my thoughts on that will increase once we get past this first part, because the first thing is life and death. Money is great, but life and death is more important than money. That's the first thing. And when we act as a team, that's going to bond us together. That's going to bond us together. That's going to make us want to help our fellow man. And the other thing that we have to realize is, we talk about World War I, World War II, the United States and its allies against, the evil enemy. Well, right now, there is no evil enemy. Right now, what we have is to realize that we, as a planet, are in this, all of us, together. We're all in this together because this broke out in China. All right, I'm not blaming the Chinese. I mean, it broke out in China, right? But it spread all over the world. It's a worldwide problem. So when you have a worldwide unsolved opportunity, what do you have to have? A worldwide solution. So we have to band together as one unit, as one team, to get this thing eliminated. And once again, it's the same as anything in the success formula. So we talked about having a scoreboard to sell the problem, show people that it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then once it starts to get better, then we have to have the scoreboard that says it's getting better and better and better and better, and keep that in the face, because we have to keep this vision, this goal, this objective on a front burner until everything, the whole thing, gets solved. And that doesn't just mean the disease, that means the economic circumstances that are going to arise from that. And it's quite possible that there's going to be a change in lifestyles. One of the things I remember, Eli, from my grandmother, your great-grandmother that you never met, is, now she lived through the Depression. And when she would stay at our house, one of the things she liked to do is she liked to drink tea. So she would take a tea bag, put it in the, in the cup with the boiling water, all right? And then she would take the tea bag and put it aside. And I'm thinking to myself, you already made your cup of tea, throw out the tea bag. Well, during the Depression, you know what they did? They didn't just use a tea bag one time. They used it several times. Why? Because there was, society dictated, because of the lack, that they make do and make adjustments. And she carried that. I mean, today, if somebody takes a tea bag, nobody uses it twice. But back then, they did. So what I'm saying to you is, there's very possibly going to be some adjustments in the way that we do things. And we have to accept those. Just the same way as older people have to accept the new technology of the computer age and not have the get off of my lawn mentality. They have to embrace it because it's here, it's part of us. It's very, very likely that from a society standpoint, there are going to be some new structures or some new things that we have to embrace that we didn't have to embrace last year or the year before that, because things are changing. Now, we're doing this right now on an emergency basis. Would it have been better if, when the thing first broke out in China, that we had started taking action, like with masks and ventilators and preparing places for hospitals and having tests ready, that would have been smarter for us to do, but we didn't do it. So we had the emergency situation, and now we're mobilizing. Do we have any other situations, and this is on a back burner somewhat, okay, not necessarily, but this is something that we need to think about. Is there evidence that we are going to experience global warming? Hello, McFly, there's tons of evidence about that. What are we doing about it? It's not in the mindset. What we're saying is, well, it's not affecting me right now, so I'm not doing anything about it. Leaders, we have to trust you to look out for us. Sometimes as a leader, you have to do things that are not popular. Because if we do things that are not popular, it's going to hurt somebody's economic scenario one way or the other. And say, well, I don't want to do that. Here's the point. We have to trust our leaders are looking out for us long term. This thing with global warming is maybe not happening right this very second, although there's some evidence that it's not happening in a critical way right this second. But if we continue to do the things that we're doing, we're going to run into an urgency situation the same way as we have with this coronavirus. Can we please learn from history? The person that doesn't learn from history is an idiot. You have to learn from history. Let's take advantage. I mean, these are the things that we have to have responsible leaders. People have to step up and they have to say, you know what, this isn't popular, but it's necessary. Sacrifices are going to have to be made, and they have to sell the problem before they're going to be able to sell the solution. So I'm just giving you an example of a couple of things, all right? So first things first, let's focus on curtailing the spread of this virus, all right? If that means we have to sacrifice for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, for 2 months, or 3 months, in the long term, we will all benefit from it. That's number one. Number two, there's going to be some economic consequences from this. We as a nation have to band together, just as we band together to stop this thing, to get people up and running again financially, which may mean a little sacrifice here and there so that somebody else will be able to sit down and have a decent meal or have a decent job or to do whatever their particular function needs to be. And third, let's wake the heck up and say, what other issues do we have that are going slowly, but we can see them making progress? Let's stop the virus in China. Let's stop the virus of global warming. Now, let's start taking action on those types of things right now, this minute. What a rant that was, huh? Okay, my point is, the way you solve anything, the way that you achieve anything, the formula is always the same. The problem, sell the problem, envision the solution, get to the starting line, succeed, fail, start a new starting line, start a new starting line, start a new starting line, until you get to the finish line. And then go to the second lap that needs to be solved, the economic part of it, and do it exactly the same way. And work together as a team. Share the vision. Sell the dream. And also, as a leader, examine the data. Keep your eye on the ball. Examine the data. Look long term. And because we will never end one of our meetings on a philosophical note, let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.